Hi, and welcome to our final show for the 2014-15 calendar school year as we talk high school sports for the final time. We'll take a couple of months off and then we'll be back with you at the start of the fall semester. Our wrap-up show, as always, is with our athletic director, and we've brought in Chris Walker to talk about some of the great things that happened this year and also take a look at 2015-2016. And Coach, I can't think of I'm going to go in a little bit of a reverse order here, but I can't think of a better way to kind of end things for the school year than the baseball team going to the state tournament. That has to really make you feel good.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't be more excited for our athletic community and specifically our baseball community. You're absolutely right. I think that's the way we need to finish it every year. But it was definitely filled with excitement. The baseball team was able to do something that they haven't done for, I think it was the last 25 years. And it's fun getting to see those kids experience that, the parents and the coaches and just everything that's involved with that type of success.
You and I have been around this so long, in those spring sports, they're so dominated by the four big schools in the Tulsa area and the Edmond schools that it's really difficult to break through all that. And Ponca City was able to do that not only in baseball, but we had a state championship tennis player too.
Yeah, absolutely. Me and you have talked about the division of Class 6A, but predominantly your big 6A schools consistently are winning those state titles year in and year out. And I think over the last 20 years, 87% of all state titles have been won by those top 6A schools. So when a little old Ponca City baseball team goes in and beats the defending state champion plus Broken Arrow, I think that says something for our kids. And then, for our tennis player, I think that's outstanding as well.
Well, Daniel Langston, I mean, here's a kid playing. He's playing Edmond and Broken Arrow and Union, and but he is the best in the state. And our congratulations. He's got another year of eligibility as well. So baseball and boys tennis certainly ended things on a good note. And the other spring sports, I know we're young, we're working on those things, but I guess everything still went okay as far as our track, our track program, girls and boys soccer, the golf teams, everything went okay this year.
Yeah, it finished well. I think in some of the sports we didn't do quite as good as we was expecting to do, but that's high school athletics at times. Some years, just like our baseball team, they have a pretty meager season and they finish strong. It's just dealing with 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-old kids. You have ups and downs, but our other programs, they competed.
I always had the idea that we had to work about 5 times as hard to get to where some of those other schools were, and it's not just Ponca, but those coaches and those players. I just have a feeling that if we make a state tournament, we've had to walk about 10 extra miles than everybody else.
Yeah, it sure definitely feels like it. Being a coach that used to compete against that other big schools, and now as the athletic director, I see all of our coaches and our athletes, fighting that uphill battle. I mean, when you are going against a school like Tulsa Union or Broken Arrow, when they have 3 to 4 kids to our one, I mean, it's just a numbers game. When a baseball team or our tennis player Daniel achieves something like that, it's special because they had to overcome such big odds.
And having individuals, that doesn't happen a lot for these schools. Daniel won it last year and he became the first player in 30 years to win a state championship in tennis. Same thing in golf. Once in a while you'll get a real good individual and they'll come through. You brought up the subject of numbers, so let's stay with that. We broke down football into 2 classes. I get asked a lot about other sports, and I might just let you take it from there. Where do you see the OSSAA and high school sports as far as maybe a split in other sports happening in the near future?
Well, nothing's going to happen anytime soon. This year, me and 2 other athletic directors, we petitioned the OSSAA board to look at splitting all of the 6A schools. And what we did was we had to get all the 6A schools, we had to get a majority of them to vote for it to even go to the board. And we did that. I think 22 out of the 32 schools in 6A voted to split 6A. So then we presented it to the OSSA directors. And from there, it went to the OSSA board. And out of the board, it went to a subcommittee. And all this year, that committee has been looking at the possibility of splitting all sports, not just in football. The reason behind it, we feel is, like I said a while ago, over the last 20 years, 87% of all state titles have been won by the top 6A schools. And a majority of the sports programs, like football or some of the other sports, have been won 100% by a big school. The reason it's not like 95 or 97% of all state titles won by the big schools is because of Bishop Kelly volleyball and Ponca City wrestling. It skewed the numbers a little bit. But if you just look at the numbers, when we're competing against schools that have 4 kids through R1, that to me isn't a disadvantage for our kids. When you look at over the past 20 years, 87% of all state titles have been won by your larger schools. I just think we're playing at an unfair advantage. And at the end of the day, the group that I was with that presented this to the board, what we want is we want our towns to experience that type of success. And we feel if we're competing against other schools that are our same size or somewhat comparable, our kids would get to experience that as much as, or if not, ever so often, as it sets now. I mean, it's far and in between, just like our baseball team, 25 years since they went to the state tournament. And at the end of the day, I want to do what's right for our kids.
So it went to this subcommittee. Did they just table it? Did they just say we're not going to look at it for a while, or where does it stand?
Well, I think a lot of times that's it's still in the subcommittee, and I don't see any movement so far.
If it's a big disparity in football, why would they not agree that it's a big disparity in basketball and wrestling and soccer and golf? It's a big disparity, and you said 4-1. That may be a conservative estimate, but it's in every sport, and I guess I'm trying to understand the thinking as to why they would say, yeah, you're right in football, but they wouldn't say it in other sports.
The answer we was given was that in football it's dangerous, and so that the bigger the numbers, the more risk the kids are physically. I understand that, but I think it's inconsistent and unfair for all the other sports that have to play at that disadvantage. Wrestling, it's a very physical sport, and when you got programs like Tulsa Union that have got 100 kids in their junior high, and we've got 35 in our junior high, it's a numbers game.
Makes you sometimes appreciate what you and all of our wrestling program folks did back in 2002 through 2006, winning all those state championships. And in my mind, you were doing it against, I think, better quality than we see right now. I tell you, there were teams that were outstanding if we wouldn't have been every bit as good. And I guess that is remarkable that we won all those state championships against schools that did outnumber you too.
Yeah, it was fun to be a part of that when I was coaching, and as a head coach and as an assistant, that was pretty outstanding. And during that time, our wrestling team was so good. Our football team was extremely good too, and so it was just a fun time to be in Ponca City coaching. But,
you said the thrill for you is to watch the community and the boys and the girls get excited about it. You saw that firsthand with all those state championships.
Absolutely. When we would go down to the state tournament, you'd look up in the stands, and from the bottom of the seats all the way to the top, it was Ponca City people. I got to see that again over at Enid the other day when the baseball team went and played at the state tournament. On the side we were sitting, it was all Ponca City people, and that's what high school athletics is about for me. Those kids getting to experience those types of things. We're not asking to win state titles every year. We just want our kids to be able to experience those things, because I assure you they work just as hard as any other programs do.
Let's talk football a little bit. As you and I record this, high schools are allowed to go through a series of padded practices, which began a few years ago, and I guess you and Coach Allen have discussed things a little bit, but he's going to have the boys out there. And this year we have 6 home football games, so it's going to be a fun fall season.
Yeah, it is. It's we're starting our spring practice next week, and Coach Allen and his football staff is going to get a chance for a couple weeks to work with the upcoming football team, and then they'll go into their summer pride, their lifting camps, 7-on-7s, all their individual camps, skills camps that they go to get ready for the upcoming season. Like you mentioned, we're going to have 6 home football games this year. I know the community, didn't like the fact that we only had 4 this past year. That was kind of a perfect storm with redistricting and the splitting of 6A. But we're on the receiving end of it this year. We're going to have 6 home games, and so it's going to be fun to get to watch all those home games.
Absolutely, and again, just from experience, we won 3 games in football this year, and for a lot of communities, that would be disastrous. But for what Josh has done as he's come in here, you can see the way that he's building this program, and I think there's a lot of optimism about even more success coming up this fall.
Yeah, our football, when Josh first got here, he started to rebuild the whole program, and that's not something that you can do just in 1 or 2 years. When you rebuild the program, you're restructuring it from your feeder program all the way up to your high school program. And for that to take effect, it's a 3, 4, 5 year process, so that those kids in junior high have a chance to work through your system and reap the benefits of rebuilding that program. I met with Josh just the other day, and I was looking at his chalkboard. I think he had 97 kids signed up to play football. Wow. That's 37 more, I think, than what he had when he first came here. So if you just look at that, the perception among the kids, it's a lot more positive. Kids want to go be a part of that, and that's contagious, and we're excited about that.
And here's the thing that I've learned, and I'll get your comment on it, but people always say, well, it's not the number of kids you have out, it's how many good players you have. Well, there's some truth to that, but I promise you, and you know this through wrestling, if you've got more numbers, you've got more kids to practice, you've got less kids that play varsity playing JV, you don't have the pressure of bringing up maybe a 9th grader that has there's just a lot of things you can do when you have numbers. It's not a mystery that the schools that have the big numbers are usually winning. It's because they can do so much more.
Yeah. When you look at your numbers, one of the biggest places that's beneficial is, like you said, in the practice. If you have significantly lower numbers, then you don't have those bodies to put in front of your varsity guys to give them competition. And what makes kids better on the football field, the basketball gym floor, or in the wrestling room, or just on any field, is the competition they get in practice.
Let's talk girls softball. I know that Coach Freeman is taking a principal position. Where do we stand on our softball coaching situation? And again, softball has been one of those steady programs for us the last several years.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach Freeman has done an outstanding job with our softball team. When he took over, he got to work with the community and the parents and the our softball players, and they've done a phenomenal job over there. We just hired our new softball coach. Josh Swain is going to be our new head girls softball coach. You may be familiar with him. He was the head junior high softball coach, and he also helped out on our baseball team. But Josh is also a Ponca City kid that played for us. He's been with us for a couple years as a teacher and a coach. Prior to that, he ran some of the summer league for baseball. I think 6-7 years he's ran that. So he's got the knowledge, he's got the experience to step in and do a great job.
And it's kind of a trend that we're seeing in Ponca City is is guys that play for the Wildcats and get their education here, and they go on and they start to learn some things. They come back to Ponca City, and our administration's given them a chance to coach their old high school teams. And I think there's something to that. The guys I talk to anyway say they have a lot of pride in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, it's always a plus when we get a Ponca City kid to come back here when they have went through the process and got, their degree and become a coach and a teacher, to come back and give back to the community that gave them something. I think you've got a little bit more pride and a little bit more ownership when you come back to a place that you're from. Jason
Levitt's one of those guys who you brought back in, former Wildcat, and I know that wrestling is such an important thing in our community. Where do you see our wrestling program? I know Jason's got a lot of young kids, and we just have to be patient. People have been patient. What's your take on our wrestling program?
Well, first, I think Coach Levitt's done an outstanding job. From the moment he came in here, he brought energy and passion and fire and just a love for the program. It's especially in the wrestling, it means something to bring somebody that has been through the program. And that's how you build tradition. And Jason's done a great job. He's got a group of young kids that have started over the last couple years, and I think without a doubt we're going to see a very, very much improved wrestling team this year. And I would almost be able to guarantee you that they'll be one of the top 4 programs in the next couple of years.
Absolutely. Our basketball programs, Alan Hibler with our boys. Now, as we record this again, where do we stand, Coach, on our girls basketball program and the possibility of a new hire there?
We just finished up the interview process for the girls spot, and we hired a gentleman out of Miami, Oklahoma. His name is Jody Fincher, and he comes from Arkansas. From Arkansas, he went to Miami, and he's coming to us, and he's going to be our coach this upcoming season. Jody brings a lot of stability. I think he's a coach that puts kids first. That was one of the things that impressed me in the interview process with him. Everything he talked about always went back to putting the kids first and what was going to be good for the kids. And I think you can't go wrong when you've got somebody that's got what's best for the kids at heart.
Absolutely. So it was a good year. Looking forward to a lot of things. Coach, anything that you wanted to discuss with the community as far as next year is concerned, as far as maybe buildings or any changes that we're going to see as far as our high school or junior high sports are concerned?
I think the biggest thing is just get involved with the different programs that we have to offer. Ponca City, it's traditionally always had such great support through its booster clubs. I can't stress to you enough how important it is that our booster clubs have the support from the community. And I see it every year. The local businesses, the moms and dads, the grandmas, grandpas, cousins, it just seems like this town has always supported its athletic programs, and I just continue to do that, in this upcoming season. And then in regards to buildings and stuff, I know that the central office has got some big plans for the upcoming year, and when those things are presented to the community, I just hope that you get behind them and support them. Our athletes, they deserve the best that we can give them.
Absolutely, and this community, I think it's starving. It's ready to explode, and maybe that'll happen this fall. We've seen it before, and it's quite a great thing. Good job. Your second year complete.
Second year complete. I'm still here.
Wow. Well, I'm still here too. So have a great summer. Chris Walker, our athletic director. For Chris Adams behind the camera, we've enjoyed it. We'll see you in the fall of 2015.